It has been such a pleasure being here at this amazing conference, developer conference in Portugal. And this is just one of the few amazing people that I met here. His name is Cain, and he works for the Linux Foundation. I was so impacted by his story, so I would love for you to share just what you shared with me. You don't have to share everything, but he understands what it is like to go through things and keep on going, which is something that I think all of us need to learn, all of us, including me. I mostly am interviewing you for advice, really, because I tend to disintegrate, sometimes, and I think a lot of us do when something hard happens, and you've gone through some really hard things, haven't you?
Yeah, so to kind of summarize what we talked about the other day, was in the Army for about 18 and a half years, and that accompanied a lot of loss due to, friends and also my significant other at the time, and uh, unfortunately, I do have an experience with loss. But as we discussed, I don't really try to think too much about the loss because uh, even if even if it pains your heart and even if you don't necessarily know how to move forward, those people that cared about you, they want you to succeed, and you can't just let go and give up and go uh, lay down. As much as sometimes you may want to, isolating yourself isn't going to solve anything because how do you move forward? That's not an answer. The You said the adage, the keep on keeping on. I mean, it's I think it's a little bit overused, but it does make a lot of sense. There's a lot to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it is so important to, like you said, when we isolate, at least a lot of us, we become depressed when we isolate. And I believe even introverts, extroverts, introverts, doesn't matter. We need community. We need people. We need to be productive. And that's something that you seem to understand, which I think is just so amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an introvert myself when I'm not like I mean I don't really have a problem interacting with people or being sociable or anything like that. But when it's my time to be alone or something like that, I very much enjoy my private personal time where I'm just kind of like chilling at home. I mean, we all kind of like work in a little sedentary lifestyle and stuff like that, which can be a little bit dangerous when you spend a lot of time at home, especially in these times of like COVID and this, that, and the other. But it is important to maintain connections with people in your life that you care about, whether it's family or having a close friend or something like that. It's critical for everybody's mental health that they stay connected to at least one or two people, right? Even if you are socially introverted, something like
Yeah.
that. Absolutely.
And I mean, in my own losses in my life, I haven't gone through as many as extreme losses as you've been through, but I've lost best friends and that kind of thing. And um, the the idea of isolation being harmful, it can be very harmful, um, and I think that's so admirable that you understand, and it's okay to be sad. I mean, in fact, we're supposed to walk through sadness, right? But then there's always not the end. I mean, we will always still, the sadness will always be there with the loss, but there's always hope too. There's always something for us to do on this earth. There's always something for us to do.
Yeah, when you think about the sadness of loss, when you're going through those hardships, especially when you lose somebody who's particularly close to you, it's also important to never forget those feelings. Some people, they say, "Oh, let's forget and let's move on," but you're wrong. It's that's You'll figure out later when you've decided to move past your grief that grief has actually helped develop you into a better person. It teaches you lessons, much like they always say. There's lessons learned in loss. There's lessons learned in failure. It's the same thing, really. It's just more personable. It's at a more deeper and core level. So trying to get over your grief is not the correct approach. It's learning to accept your grief and use that to further yourself.
Yes, and I know people who have done that where they just, I'm not going to think about it. Nope, it didn't happen. Just it's like they stay in the denial stage of grief forever. They just, and I knew someone like that, and then 20 years later, just randomly they had a breakdown. It's because they had never dealt with it. They had just, their mom died, and I think some people do that, and it's not healthy, and it's healthy to connect with people and to acknowledge the grief. This is something I need to walk through. This is something I need to deal with. It's hard. It's really hard, but the sooner we deal with it, the sooner we can at least we'll never get over it. We'll never get over it, but we can at least get to a place where no, and you shouldn't, because we need to remember that person, and we need to but we also need to keep going too. And I think more people need to understand that about grief, the grieving process.
Yeah, you can't, like I said, you can't just sit down or lay down and let the world swallow you up.
Yeah.
You have to keep walking forward.
Yeah. So what advice would you have for someone who they've lost someone, and they've never gone through loss ever in their life, and they want to disintegrate. They don't want to see people ever again. Maybe they're suicidal. Maybe they're just in a really bad place. What would you tell them, knowing that what you've gone through, and that you're here today, you're still standing? I mean, tremendous losses you've gone through, but you got through it. What would you say to that person who just feels so hopeless?
Well, I have to start by saying everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
And so for me to try and be so foolhardy is say, this is exactly what you have to do. That's a very difficult thing. But again, going back to making sure that you're talking to somebody, even if it's family or friends, that is certainly one thing. But if you don't feel that you can really disclose that inner emotion, because everybody has something that they want to keep private about themselves, or certain pain that they want to keep private about themselves, even from their friends and family, and that's okay. But you should still find somebody to talk to, and mental health is very, very important. And we're discovering that more and more. And I would also say that while there are a lot of not I wouldn't say necessarily great options out there for reaching like some mental health approaches.
I agree. I think that really needs a reform.
Right, but there are good options out there, and things are getting better. Right, there are now online options. It makes it easier, and there's a little bit of distance there. So if you're feeling quite uncomfortable, but you want to talk to somebody, you can reach out to some of these platforms. And if you don't really like where it's going, go somewhere else. Or because in the old days you'd go find the one or two psychiatrists or something that might be in your area, and maybe you have to wait like a year to talk to them.
Or what if insurance doesn't cover them, and it's a nightmare.
And that steers some people away from getting help. Right, and so I'm grateful that there are now more and more options for people being able to find help. The world is starting to take mental health a little bit more seriously. And so that is, thank goodness. So that is a good thing. Key point, talk to somebody, right? Even if you have doubts, I promise that is going to be the thing that helps you out. Because somebody's going to look at it from a different perspective and kind of be able to, give you some advice. Especially a mental health professional is going to be able to walk you through some of your pain and your feeling, and teach you again that grief is not something that you necessarily want to let go, but grow from and embrace.
Yes. Oh, so well spoken. Well, thank you so much for giving us this insight into your life and your wisdom. You clearly have gained a lot of wisdom over the years because of what you've gone through, and that's what experience does. It gives us wisdom from the experience.
And gray hair.
And gray hair, yes. I should be getting mine soon, probably. Well, thank you so much, Casey. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and it's been so nice to meet you this trip.
It was great meeting you and talking to you.
Yes, thank you. Well, this is Casey Cain, everyone.